This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was in town today peddling his federal government's budget. He made several stops, including meeting with students, trade workers, apprentices, and even a closed-door meeting with the mayor. But as CBC's Brittany Greenslade reports, Trudeau also used this day to push back against prairie premiers he says are distorting his government's words.
Orange is the high voltage circuit.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was schooled by University of Manitoba engineering students this morning, getting a first-hand look at electric racing vehicles, batteries, and 3D printed parts as the PM touted his government's new budget.
Budget 2023 invests in the industries you'll soon be leading.
But that wasn't the only topic on the agenda. Trudeau was pushed on whether his government plans to rescind the Natural Resources Transfer Agreement, a 1930s law that gives control over the administration of natural resources to the 4 western provinces. First Nations leaders called for the move last week. Federal Justice Minister David Lametti said Ottawa would look at the agreement but went no further. But still, Prairie premiers accused the feds of threatening to overturn the Constitution and strip away the rights of provinces. Today, Trudeau shot back.
If you actually look at his remarks, it is very clear that we're talking about the importance of the federal government living up to our responsibilities under UNDRIP, something that unfortunately the prairie premiers have not taken seriously, and they are instead trying to elevate fears that have absolutely no grounding in truth.
The United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, or UNDRIP, requires the feds to align Canadian laws and policies with the rights of Indigenous people, taking into account past injustices and discrimination. Rights the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs says were stripped away in that agreement.
But these NRTAs unilaterally altered the treaty hunting and fishing rights of First Nation people to secure their livelihoods into the future.
Grand Chief Kathy Merrick supports a review of it, but says Indigenous people need to be included.
History can't be erased, but history can be made as well moving forward into the future.
Trudeau reiterated his government is committed to furthering reconciliation, and that includes working with First Nations people. Brittany Greenslade, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, it is once again time for Winnipeg Jets fans to dig out their white attire. Whiteout parties will be planned now that the team is officially playoff bound.
Appleton's alone in front. Here he is, scores!
And that was the goal that sealed the deal last night. Mason Appleton gave the Jets a 2-goal lead over the Wild in Minnesota. The win meant the Jets clinched the final playoff spot in the NHL's Western Conference. We won't know who their first-round opponent will be until the regular season games. The final ones are played this week. Well, with the excitement of making the playoffs comes the anticipation of all the fun events that come with it. We sent our Matthew Shorting out to speak with fans.
How are you feeling about the Jets getting into the playoffs?
Woo! I was so happy to see that they won so then we could get in the playoffs. And they better do better in the playoffs because we got to get the Stanley Cup this year.
Yeah?
Excited.
Yeah. How are you going to celebrate?
Whiteout.
The whiteout party?
Every night.
If they're having the parties, that would be great, yeah. It would be nice to get everyone downtown and together and have a good time.
Yeah.
There's always whiteout parties, yeah. And I live downtown, so they're not too far.
Well, usually they're outside, and hopefully the weather will be really nice, and so I'll make sure that I'm out here with at least some white pants on and no shirt.
Hopefully we'll have the playoffs here in the streets like we did before. Because that was the best watching the games on the streets.
Is what everyone's remembering. These images of people packed into closed blocks of downtown streets for whiteout parties. They're what many fans hope to relive. There's been no word yet from True North Sports and Entertainment if its playoff parties this time around will look like they did in previous years or where they may happen. We will keep you updated as details are released, but there's no question the team wants to make its fans happy right about now. Attendance for the Jets has dwindled to the point where True North has launched a season ticket drive. As CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, this is something the organization hasn't had to do in a long time.
They're going to beat the Wild 3-1 and they're off to the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Relief last night for the owner of the Winnipeg Jets. A playoff appearance means at least 2 more home games this spring and the revenue that comes with it. Average attendance for the Jets at Canada Life Centre is just over 14,000 fans per game this year, down from a pre-pandemic average of more than 15,000, which was close to a nightly sellout. This is a big change for the Jets. When the NHL came back to Winnipeg in 2011, season tickets sold out in 17 minutes. Now the Jets are doing this.
From across the prairies down to Portage Avenue, Polar Blue is our lifeblood.
For the first time in 12 years, we are actively and publicly launching a broader-based campaign to reestablish our season ticket membership base.
True North Sports and Entertainment says it lost 2,000 season ticket holders during the pandemic.
People got comfortable being at home. They got comfortable watching television and ordering in their food. And so it's been a challenge for everybody who's in sports and entertainment to address that behavior.
On Tuesday, True North Chair Mark Chipman told Winnipeg business leaders the corporate sector has to buy more tickets. But the campaign is also aimed at ordinary fans. Season ticket holder Blue Jay Bridge is among those who say prices are just too high.
This is not Toronto, it's not Montreal, it's not Vancouver, so we have a lot of headquarters. So I guess there's not a lot of big money in this town. Folks work regular jobs and they're regular people, and they're asking for exorbitant amounts of money to come enjoy their product.
True North says Winnipeg does have enough money to support an NHL team, but its new promotional video questions that without more paying fans.
Was Winnipeg an NHL city? You better believe it, but it takes all of us. Join us.
It feels a little threatening.
Sarah Braga's getting rid of her season tickets to the Jets, tickets she's held since the NHL came back. She says the cost is one factor, so is a lack of excitement.
I feel like the team in general has lacked a certain amount of heart. Since 2018 when we had that great run and it was so exciting and everything. And it just seems like since then we haven't been able to get it back.
True North hopes to reclaim enough excitement to sell 3,000 more season tickets next year. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The leader of a northern Manitoba First Nation is concerned about the impact of a nationwide nursing shortage. Pamichikamak Cree Nation is one of several communities facing critical staffing issues. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, Ottawa has promised to take action while the First Nation seeks solutions of its own.
Nursing stations like this one are primarily staffed by nurses, except they're in short supply, including in remote and isolated communities. Pimichikamak Cree Nation Chief David Monius worries it's creating barriers to a critical service in his community.
We have to make sure that we have our people properly diagnosed and no kissing canes.
As of February 15th, the average operational vacancy rate of nurses who staff the stations was 68%. Northern First Nation health and wellness advocate Dr. Barry LaValle says shortages are more serious in remote and isolated communities. Nursing stations are often the only place people can access care close to home.
In the communities, it's life or death in many cases. So we need somebody there.
Indigenous Services Canada says it fills vacancies by contracting agency nurses and calling on other healthcare workers such as paramedics. Still, many positions have been left vacant, limiting the capacity to care for people. Jennifer Carr heads up the union representing nurses who staff the stations. She says when they're short, people in need of non-urgent care have to wait, and their conditions can get worse.
It escalates the problem and then takes them away from the community to get the care that they could have got if we had sufficient staffing levels.
Carr says nurses typically work in the same station on a 2-week rotation, flying in and staying in a community while on shift. LaValle says recruitment and retention efforts alone may not be enough. He commended nurses for the work they do, but feels the whole system needs an overhaul.
It can't be dependent upon people just flying in.
Monius pointed to the planned opening of a new health center in Pimicikamak. He says the community wants more of a say in who's hired.
Because we have a lot of nurses that are from Cross Lake, but they're working elsewhere. But we want to keep them there, keep them here in Cross Lake, but that's not possible right now, because we're not the ones in charge of the hiring process.
Indigenous Services Canada says it's working with First Nations leaders to find solutions. Part of the plan to increase staffing includes incentives for nurses to work in remote communities. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipeg City Councillor wants the province to license apartment buildings where vulnerable people live. Recurring problems with crime, safety, and fires plague many properties, especially in the inner city. CBC's Cameron McLean reports.
This apartment building on Sargent Avenue has been the site of multiple homicides and fires in recent years. Now, area councillor Cindy Gilroy has brought forward a motion calling on the province to do more to address it and others like it.
We really want to protect people that are the most vulnerable people, making sure that they have safe living conditions and making sure that these landlords are held accountable and making sure that they're safe, but also making sure that the province is providing the adequate supports.
Problems at the Adinak apartment drew the attention of Wolseley NDP MLA Lisa Naylor.
The Adinak used to be a decent building that families called home, but now it's an illegal dumping ground full of garbage. There's multiple bylaw infractions leading to fires, property crime, drug and sex trafficking.
There are several other buildings in Gilroy's ward which she says are problems, including this one on Furby Street. A search of the property records shows that all the buildings Gilroy identified are linked to the same owner. Besides licensing buildings, Gilroy wants the province to help identify and track problem buildings. She also wants them to arrange for social and mental health supports directly in buildings. Mayor Scott Gillingham says he supports Gilroy's motion.
By partnering with the province of Manitoba and working with Councillor Gilroy as the area councillor, and the landlords that are providing that housing, I think that we can come to a place where we're doing a better job of helping people who are living in those places.
Families Minister Rochelle Squires says the province already works with the city to address problem properties, but acknowledged there's more to do.
Working to ensure that unsheltered residents get housing that they need and that those who are precariously housed get stability and, where necessary, those wraparound mental health supports.
Gilroy's motion to address these problem properties will come before Gillingham's Inner Circle and Executive Policy Committee next week. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, we reached out to the owners of the Adinak apartment, but they would not answer our questions. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs is reimagining what a justice system could look like for First Nations people. The AMC has plans to set up courts in 2 communities in Manitoba based on First Nation legal traditions. Grand Chief Kathy Merrick says there's an urgent need for a complete overhaul as Indigenous people continue to be overrepresented in the existing system.
The statistics are well known to both Canada and Manitoba, yet they continue to tinker with the current justice system with little to no First Nation involvement. And the only measurable success they have to show for its higher incarceration rates for First Nation people.
Merrick says the plan will need government cooperation and funding. The province says it welcomes ongoing discussions. The Winnipeg School Division celebrated its 53rd annual Science Fair today. And after years of pandemic-related concerns, it's perhaps no wonder many projects had a similar theme. The CBC's Joanne Roberts explains.
Students from 17 different schools are right here at TechVoc competing and showing off their research. But let me tell you, this is not your typical science fair.
So it's about a circular resource system. So it shows how blood flows to our brains, our body, and our heart.
In our project, the male
has better lungs than females.
And how did you find that out?
By testing people using a spirometer.
This year, health and wellness seem to be at the forefront of the science fair, and here's why.
It's important to know how to keep ourselves healthy throughout our lives, because otherwise you might have a lot of health issues that could make getting older harder.
It's been integrated into my everyday life because people always talk about it.
It's Mishka Bernardo's first regional science fair. She found eating healthy breakfasts leads to better learning, so she came up with a point system that encourages people to eat healthier foods.
If they don't eat enough, like if they just drink orange juice, for instance, then that still gets them points, but they don't get as much points as if they had a full nutritious meal.
Can you tell me what kind of goes into a nutritious meal that would get us that big score?
Well, if you have vegetables or fruits and whole grain, protein, healthy drinks, but not anything unhealthy like soda.
These students learned about the heart and created a video that shows us how the heart works.
The heart is really important because it spreads blood throughout our body to help us function properly.
Why do you think it's important to do this project now?
So people can know easily how heart is important to us, how it helps us to live.
Celebrating science isn't the only goal today.
I hope to move on. It would be a very nice experience. I wouldn't be disappointed if I didn't get in, but at the same time, it would be great.
Hundreds of students from grades 7 to 12 are competing for 4 spots that will take them to nationals in Edmonton next month. The winners will be announced this weekend. Joanne Roberts, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A high school athlete in Winnipeg will be honored tonight. Abby Sweeney has been named Athlete of the Year by the Manitoba Aboriginal Sports and Recreation Council. The grade 11 student at Dakota Collegiate is from Pimicimica Cremation and plays with the Dakota Lancers basketball team and also the Evolve Basketball Club. She's also coaching a provincial team going to the North American Indigenous Games this summer. CBC's Janelle Henry has her story.
There she goes with one of her signature moves, the Euro step layup, helping them win this game and clinching the championship title. Abigail Sweeney, more known as Abby, is coach of this team and 2 other teams. All that talent got her named Athlete of the Year.
It's amazing. I can't even express how happy and grateful I am to be named that. It just feels amazing.
Sweeney is from Pimicimica Cremation. She was nominated because of her determination.
We usually have practices almost every day, it feels like, but I also work with Strive Academy to go do some workouts and stuff for basketball. And sometimes when I'm home and I don't have basketball during the day, I sometimes work in the garage with my dad or in the basement when we can.
This is Eric Sung's 3rd year coaching the student athlete. He was among those who nominated her for the award.
And Abby's one of the most competitive people that we have on this group. She enjoys competing. The first day I saw her play, she kind of has always shown that and enjoys it too. And I think that goes a long way and kind of becomes contagious amongst the group.
The Manitoba Aboriginal Sports and Recreation Awards are handed out annually. Carrera Lamoureux is in charge of the awards event. She says this year they've received the most nominations they've ever had, with the most for Athlete of the Year, making Sweeney's win all the more remarkable.
Not only is she excellent on the court, we've seen that. Anyone who knows her would know that she is a good basketball player, but she also helps out in her community.
Lamoureux says the award is to inspire others because you can't be what you can't see. And for Sweeney, passing on what she knows is already on her mind.
I would like to go back to my community and do some running camps or stuff like that, or coaching. I would try to do something like that. It would be cool.
Janelle Henry, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Soon we'll be able to play basketball outdoors because all the snow will have melted.
Isn't it amazing how quickly it happens? I watch the weather carefully all the time, and I'm always amazed each spring at how quickly the snowbanks just disappear like that. I showed a snowpack map about 10 days ago on air, and it has changed dramatically. Have a look at this map. So this one, estimated snowpack on this date, is really a lot different than a couple of weeks ago, where we had in the Red River Valley numbers coming up around 45 centimeters, just down around Emerson and south of the border, even around the Red River Valley here in southern Manitoba. We had numbers that were closer to 25 to 30 centimeters, and now any snow that we have left over in southern Manitoba is really thin. The fields are starting to show through. We've got a little bit more out in northwestern Ontario, still about 16 up around Thompson. So this is packed snow, and we had a little bit of extra snow today across the north, around 10 to 15 centimeters actually, and that'll pack down into another couple of centimeters and then start to melt really quickly. 11 degrees right now, cloudy, sunny, and 14 earlier. My forecast high was 15, didn't quite get there. Northwest winds now at 17 kilometers per hour. The snowfall warning in the Thompson area has ended a couple of hours ago. We still have that up for the Gillam region, but only for a couple of more hours at the most. This system continues to move off to the east. You can see that on satellite imagery here. Even a few breaks in the cloud now north of Thompson. A few showers south of the Winnipeg area, right along the international boundary. This is the first little hint of what's to come. A storm, not a storm system, but a rainy system that is coming out of Montana. Not a Colorado low, but it'll spread some snow into parts of southern Saskatchewan and some rain into southern Manitoba as we get into the later part of Thursday. So the cloud is with us now. It stays with us overnight. Get a little bit more snow in the extreme northwest tomorrow morning around Lynn Lake, and then you'll start to see that move out of your region. But a generally cloudy day here in southern Manitoba turns into kind of a wet afternoon in some areas, and you look back to the west and we're starting to see that snow and rain mix in southern Saskatchewan. Now we go ahead into Friday morning, and you can see that it is an organized area of rain and a steady rainfall that will last about half the day. Farther north, it's mixing with some snow. Same with on the cold side of the low back in Saskatchewan. And then as we get into the end of the day, this is moving off into northwestern Ontario. So a soaking spring rain on the way for Friday. And then as we get into Saturday, much of this is going to wrap around, bring us cooler air and bring us a few snowflakes that'll probably melt as they hit the ground. Now, this model not showing the 20 millimeters that I've been talking about in my journal today, but 15 in Kenora, 6 in Winnipeg. We'll have another look at this tomorrow. It'll probably have a better idea of the actual rainfall amounts that'll happen through the day, Friday, Thursday night and Friday. Tomorrow, a cooler day than today. We start at 3 degrees, cloudy, few showers in the afternoon at 9, and then going forward, it just gets cooler and cooler. 5 on Friday in the rain, 3 degrees on Saturday, generally cloudy, back to a sun-cloud mix, Janet, and 6 degrees on Sunday. And it does look like it's going to be warmer on into next week.
Thank you, John. So more rain on the way. With all the snow we've had recently, all the melting we've seen, what will this mean for potential flooding in southern Manitoba? Jay During is a civil engineering professor at the University of Manitoba, an expert we often call on this time of year to find out about flood protection and mitigation. Jay, what are you expecting to see this spring?
Certainly, if we're watching our neighbors to the south, we know that Fargo is quite concerned, and there is reason for that. I'll remind viewers that 85% of the Red River's watershed is located south of the border. And it's the upper third of the basin, the southmost third, that has about 150% above normal winter precipitation. So there's the equivalent of 4 to 6 inches sitting on fields that has yet to melt. And that will certainly lead to probably a top 10 flood for Fargo in terms of flows and water levels. But as that water moves further north, the basin really has just sort of normal precipitation. So instead of an above average contribution to the river as it flows north, it's really just going to get a normal contribution. And by the time that crosses the border, you know, at the upper end, we'd be expecting about 70,000 cubic feet per second. Hopefully at the upper end, you know, we all know things can change very, very quickly in this business. But those kind of flows wouldn't lead to the closure of any ring dikes, nor should it lead to the loss of Highway 75, which is such a vital link for Manitoba and her friends to the south.
We are so well protected in most of southern Manitoba, certainly in Winnipeg where we have this floodway. Without the equipment that we've put in since the flood of '97, without the mitigation factors, those ring dikes, for example, what kind of situation might we see ourselves in this spring?
If those ring dikes weren't there, I think we'd be looking at ongoing significant flooding of the 16 communities that are ring dike. We'd be looking, at the red potentially leaving its banks within the city of Winnipeg. These are all scenarios that make no sense from a benefit cost point of view or from an economics point of view. So it's no surprise that we've invested in the infrastructure that we have, but it's also important to maintain it as the years go by. And to have a look, because we know that the magnitude of our floods have shifted. When the floodway was designed in 1950, we thought it was being designed for a 1 in 160-year flood. 1997 came along and we realized it didn't even provide the protection for a 1 in 100-year flood. So when it was expanded, it was increased to 1 in a 700-year flood. But when you get hydrologic events like the 6 low-pressure systems that walloped us in 2022, it's important to go back and to revisit those statistics and to ensure that it's still providing the level of protection that we hope it is, given the freak weather patterns that climate change has been hitting us with.
Jay During, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thanks so much.
We have some great news to share this evening about a colleague. Congratulations in order for one of our own here at CBC Manitoba. Our I-Team's Caroline Bargout won the award for Best Local Reporter at the Canadian Screen Awards in Toronto last night. Caroline, as you know, is a senior reporter here in our team who has a long and accomplished history of holding power to account and digging deep. Congratulations, Caroline. Coming up next, thousands of federal employees could soon be on the picket lines. Employment insurance, border crossings, and Revenue Canada could all be impacted. We'll have details after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Members of the largest Canadian government union have voted overwhelmingly in favor of a strike. More than 100,000 civil servants could be off the job this week if their union does not reach a deal with the federal government. Marina von Stackelberg reports.
I want to thank everyone for being here.
Negotiations continue, but the Public Service Alliance of Canada says if those talks aren't successful, 155,000 civil servants are now in a strike position.
An overwhelming majority of our members have told us they can't wait any longer, and they are prepared to strike to secure a fair deal that won't see them fall behind.
Some of those workers are deemed essential and won't be allowed to walk off the job. But the union says more than 100,000 of them can. That could impact border crossings and passport applications and cause delays processing immigration files and employment insurance. Canada Revenue employees are also ready to strike, with the deadline to file taxes this month looming.
Obviously, we're looking very closely to ensure that we continue to deliver the important services that Canadians rely on the federal government for. However, we also believe in collective bargaining, and that is where the discussions at the table with the public service unions continue to happen in robust ways.
The union wants a wage increase of more than 4%. Ottawa has offered less than half that.
We're living paycheck to paycheck. We have some of the lowest paid workers within the federal public service, and those workers are currently relying on food banks in order to feed their families.
The union also wants remote work written into their collective agreement. It comes as the federal government has been pushing employees to return to the office in a hybrid model 2 to 3 days a week.
Since the pandemic, we've also seen remote work become part of everyday life for many workers. Our members have proven that they can be as effective working remotely as when they are in the office.
The union now has a 60-day window to call a strike. The federal government says significant progress has been made within the last week. It says it is committed to reaching a deal that is fair for employees and reasonable for taxpayers. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
After raising rates 8 times, the Bank of Canada has paused and held its key lending rate at 4.5%. Nisha Patel looks at the impact of higher rates on higher prices.
Eddie Coe is shopping for a new mortgage.
They are a bit more than what I expected.
Since he bought his condo 5 years ago, interest rates have soared. Now he's up for renewal and expects his monthly payments could go up as much as $800 a month.
We saw the rates went up and up and up, and our hearts were just like, wow, having heart attacks at that time.
He's thinking about driving Uber to earn some extra cash and pinching his pennies to pay the bills.
We are cutting costs from our food, cutting costs on our entertainment expenses. Anything that we can see, we can save.
But less spending is just what the Bank of Canada ordered to slow the economy and cool inflation. On that front, the central bank says it's winning. From a peak of 8.1% last June, inflation has now fallen to 5.2%. The bank forecasts a drop to 3% by this summer.
Our message is plan for inflation to come back down, plan for price stability.
Still, the bank expects it will take until the end of next year to get back to the target of 2% and urge Canadians to be prepared.
It may be necessary for interest rates to stay elevated for longer to get that job done.
Despite those higher interest rates, the economy has proven resilient, and experts say the prospect of interest rate cuts this year is unlikely.
They are not going to be in a hurry to cut them when inflation is still above its target.
Coe plans to lock into a fixed-rate mortgage, so at least he knows the payments won't go any higher.
It's just living day by day, paycheck by paycheck. There's no way for us to save any more extra money.
A tough decision many Canadians will face in the months ahead. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
U.S. President Joe Biden is in Northern Ireland, marking the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Peace Accord. That ended almost 3 decades of violence known as the Troubles. Susan Ormiston has more.
The first U.S. presidential visit in a decade drew the crowds.
It's great that the president of the free world is coming to Belfast just for a brief visit.
Do you think it helps peace here?
Oh, for goodness sake, yeah.
Joe Biden spoke to a new generation at Ulster University, imploring them to keep the peace and reap the dividends.
The simple truth is that peace and economic opportunity go together.
Promising investment and jobs in a stable Northern Ireland.
There are scores of major American corporations wanting to come here, wanting to invest.
Belfast streets near the new university used to be a fighting field. Deadly sectarian battles between mainly Catholics and Protestants, nationalists and unionists. The Good Friday Agreement brought an end to the worst of the violence 25 years ago.
To those whose tools are bombs and bullets, your way is not the right way.
But now, with recent attacks on police and a political impasse paralyzing the assembly, tensions are rising.
Northern Ireland will not go back, pray God.
In spite of an end to the Troubles and the relative peace here in Belfast, these walls still stand, kilometre after kilometre, still dividing Catholic communities from Protestant ones.
There's approximately 70 of these walls, barriers, fences, structures that separate the two communities. 97% of social housing in Belfast is segregated, Catholic or Protestant.
For Johnny Byrne, Biden's visit is a reflection on the last 25 years, but importantly, a focus on how much more needs to be done.
We still define people by that question. Are you British or are you Irish? The reality is that the wall could come down tomorrow, but all these issues that impact on people, they're still going to be there.
And after Biden left Belfast, the gates between those neighbourhoods shut tight. Like they do every night, a reminder of the imperfect peace here. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Belfast.
Coming up, how studying cow burps could help in the fight to reduce greenhouse gases. Cow burps. Stay with us. Greenhouse gases are everywhere, and that means the global warming fight to reduce them is everywhere as well. The CBC's Ethan Williams takes us to Saskatchewan to a study aimed at methane, which is produced naturally down on the farm.
We have 3 or 4 different species in here compared to our control.
Bart Lardner is a professor in the College of Agriculture at the U of S. This is his laboratory, and these cows are his test subjects. That's because cows produce methane. It forms in the rumen. That's a compartment of the cow's stomach that breaks down plant products. The cow then burps out the methane through its mouth and nose. But Lardner and his team think they can reduce these emissions. In this approximately 56-hectare field, the team is growing different combinations of crops. The challenge? Find out which combination produces the least amount of methane in a cow's rumen, while also providing the animal with high-quality food. Since 2018, they've worked through the seasons to find the right mix. So far, legumes, specifically alfalfa, look to be the best bet.
We're still collecting multiple years of data, but there's certainly anywhere from 2 to 5% lower levels of emissions coming from some of those different systems. And so, as I said, we'll look at a 4 or 5 or 6 years data to come up and walk away and make some solid implications.
But how exactly do you measure methane emissions from a cow? Well, Lardner and his team have 2 solutions. The first is what he calls a green feeder. Powered by solar energy, this device dispenses pellets of alfalfa. As the cow eats, the gases it breathes and belches out are trapped by the device, stored on a cloud system, and can be assessed. The other option is a bit more intrusive.
Once this is plugged in, it'll start sucking up the gases as the animal breathes, and they'll end up in this yoke.
A sort of mask strapped around the neck and face of the livestock. It sucks up the gases they emit, and after 24 hours, it's put into vials and shipped off for analysis. Caitlin Nielsen, the team's research technician, is responsible for fitting the sometimes boisterous bovines with this device.
Day one, they get a little bit upset about it. The steers in particular will come running out of the chute and throwing their heads and kind of playing around, but by day 2 they just kind of settle in, and that's how it goes.
The study still has a ways to go, but Lardner hopes to expand his research into the real world. Ethan Williams, CBC News, near Clavet.
That's pretty interesting. Methane doesn't just come out the front end of the cow.
Which leads us to a whole different way of designing things to,
Well, and they haven't found scientists that are willing to measure the other. Yeah. Let's get right to the weather. All right. The current conditions right now, we're looking at, I'm going to talk about the weather alert in the north, the snowfall warning. I thought I'd update you on this, and this will end pretty soon in the Gillum area. 10 to 15 centimeters today. That system is rapidly moving off into the east. 11 degrees in Winnipeg right now. Steinbach at 10. 7 down the road in Morris, and just 3 in St. Laurent at Lake Manitoba right now. And then as we look at Brandon, 7. Melita, 5. Temperatures starting to cool off heading into the evening hours. Still hanging on to some warmth out in the forested regions, though. 17 right now in Kenora. Across the north, where we have seen the snow today, -1 in Thompson, -5 in Gillum, and -8 in Churchill. We've seen a little bit of snow in Churchill as well. South of that system, though, quite a bit warmer, and even out to the west. Flin Flon, the Paw, Norway House, Island Lake, all around 6 to 8 degrees. There's a leading edge of cloud that's moving into our region. Hasn't reached northwestern Ontario just yet, but it will in the overnight period. Got a chance for a few showers around Kenora, but lows are only dropping to +1. Red Lake at -1. Here across the south, the cloud cover kind of insulating us, so we'll stay in the 1 and 2 range. Might see a shower closer to the international border. Emerson seeing some showers at the moment, at least in the area. Same with Morden. Down to -1 tonight in Dauphin, -3 in Swan River. As we head into the north, as I mentioned, that system continues to push off to the east. Still some light snow around the Thompson area through the evening hours. After midnight, that'll be done. -16 in Churchill, and we still have some light snow around Gillum, where the warning is still in effect. And then tomorrow is a much quieter day. Generally early a sun-cloud mix. We've got a little bit of light snow in the morning around Lynn Lake. Might see a few flurries around Thompson early in the day, and then temperatures will rise to 7 in Thompson and only -8 or so in the Churchill area. And then here across the south, it really gets going in the afternoon and then turns into more of a steady rain in the evening. The farther north you are, the farther you are from that system. For instance, Barons River, just cloudy and 9 tomorrow. The rest of us, a cooler day, afternoon, evening rain, probably about 5 to 10 millimeters on Thursday night, and another 5 to 10 millimeters on Friday. And for northwestern Ontario, farther south, it's also a late afternoon and evening shower, a risk of a thunderstorm near Fort Frances.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Coming up, a dark fairy tale with a comic twist. Yaga is the final show of the year at the RMTC Tom Hendry Warehouse in Winnipeg. We'll speak with one of its 3 performers after the break. One of Winnipeg's best-known actors, Marina Stevenson Kerr, is currently performing the title character in the final show of the season for Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre's Tom Hendry Warehouse. It's called Yaga, and Marina Stevenson Kerr joins us now. Hello, Marina.
Hi, Janet.
For those who didn't grow up with the Eastern European folklore, which is Baba Yaga, tell us about her in a nutshell.
Baba Yaga is a wicked old witch who was used to threaten naughty children. She would grind their bones and spread their dust as fertilizer under her hut that had legs made of chicken feet. She also helped people when she wanted to, but usually Baba Yaga was a very scary character.
What's it like to play her? You're in the middle of the run now. You play her and 5 other characters. What's that like?
Yeah, well, it's pretty exhausting. I mean, Baba Yaga is the big cheese. She's the big role, and she's got to be evil, and she's got to be entertaining, and she's got to explain a lot of things. And if that weren't enough, then I do play 5 other characters, as do the other actors in the show. We each play everyone involved in this, really a detective story of which Baba Yaga is the central focus. Is she real? Is she a real person? Is she a fairy tale? Is she part of the imagination? Or is she really a threat in this small university town?
Now, I have to admit, as a woman who's over 50, when I hear of you playing one of those older woman is scary stories, there's part of me that groans. But I know. Well, there's a twist on this in this show.
Totally, and we absolutely face that head on. Why is she scary? Why are people afraid of powerful women past a certain age? Who's scared of that? Why is that scary? She's we really make fun of that, and we take that all apart. She's sexual, she's smart, she's accomplished, and she's fantastic fun. So there's nothing scary about her except in our imaginations.
For years, we've heard women actors say, you know, over the age of 40, the roles get harder and harder to find. What is it like now in the theater world?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I think that the best roles really have come to me as I've gotten older. When I was young, when I was in my 20s, I was always playing up. I have a certain strength and power as an actor, and I was really never a soubrette, an ingenue. I've done Ophelia and Juliet, but really, these are the juiciest roles, the villainous roles, the powerful roles that were waiting for me. So I think, I mean, I have some of my best roles yet to come, I think, and certainly in film, I've been playing some really, really interesting characters. Villains are the best. Villains are the best roles to play, and I've been playing a lot of villains, doing a lot of horror.
Well, you think things are getting better then for women, generally?
You know, I've got no complaints. I'm still working steadily, and I think that the roles are fantastic. But as I say, I'm looking for maybe a different kind of role. I'm looking for a really interesting, complex, powerful role, and they are out there, and they need us. I mean, really, people who are casting both film and theater, they need really strong, older women characters, and there aren't very many of us around.
Well, we're awfully glad you're around, Marina. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Janet. See ya.
Your 7-day forecast and Daily Left still to come.
Your 7-day forecast is coming right up. I want to show you some Western Canada temperatures. Single digits in southern Saskatchewan and in Alberta. A little bit warmer in BC. 11 right now in Winnipeg. But look at the east. Toronto, Windsor, mid-20s. It was 26 earlier today in Toronto. So very warm. That's shorts and T-shirts weather. We're heading into the cool stuff. Rain Thursday night and Friday. A few snowflakes. Don't worry about it on Saturday. Then our weather stabilizes. Warms up by Tuesday. Back to 12 degrees. But more rain is on the way on Wednesday. You know, a lot of Winnipeggers can really relate to this next clip. After being fed up with a pothole in his neighborhood, movie icon Arnold Schwarzenegger took it upon himself to fix it.
The former California governor, the governator, if you will, got out the shovels and some asphalt patch and terminated the problem. Here's your daily lift. Schwarzenegger himself tweeted out this video yesterday saying the whole neighborhood was upset about that giant hole in the street. See, that lady was stopping to thank him for filling it. Apparently had been screwing up cars and bicycles for weeks, so he decided to get a team together and fix it. The only trouble is today, a spokesperson for the city of Los Angeles told NBC News the pothole wasn't really a pothole.
Uh-oh.
It was a service trench being used by the gas company, and the work has not yet been completed. Oops.
Uh-oh.
So you know, I guess what that means.
Yeah.
The pothole will be back. It'll be back.
You stole my line.
Oh, I thought it was my
It's
line.
fine, though.
It'll be back. It's annoying.
We need him. He did a good job.
He did a
And his
fine
friends.
job, a fine job.
We need him in Winnipeg.
So, if you're willing to come visit, we've got a few potholes to be filled. Good night.